for jumping. Thank you so much for jumping on and being part of tonight's exciting call. We are talking about a topic that I love to, I could talk ages about menopause and midlife. And we're going to be talking about how peptides can be a tool to help us rock this phase of life. Because let's be honest, if anybody here is in this phase, you know it's a little bit tumultuous, it's a little bit rocky. There's a lot of crazy things going on for us. And I just want to share how this could potentially be something that can help you with this phase of your life. Okay. We are going to try to stay on track, which is very difficult for me with ADD. And we're going to try to keep it to about 15-20 minutes. If you do have questions during this call, please put them in the chat. At the end, we're going to try to get to as many of those questions as possible. Okay. So, we are going to be talking about how to rock midlife, like I said, and how peptides can be a tool for us to do that. I did make some notes to try to keep myself on track today, but I am a firm believer that midlife, it is something we all have to experience, but it is something that we can still thrive in. And I like to call all of us midlife baddies. Okay. So, the goal tonight is for you to come away from this call having learned at least one thing that can potentially help you with this journey. Okay. And like I said, pop your questions in the chat if you have any. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Jen Reed, and I'm 54 years old. I am a midlife mama, going through all the craziness that we experience with midlife and menopause. I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and then I have two other amazing women on here. One is more my age range, someone else is a little bit younger, but just coming into more of that perimenopause phase. So she can share a little bit about her journey, her story, and what peptides have been able to do for her. So I let me give you a little bit of background on my story, for those of you that don't know me. So I started sharing the phase of my life that I like to call Meno Hell on Instagram. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to anybody, but that's literally what it felt like. It literally felt like I was going through hell. And I started sharing my journey on Instagram, and I was amazed at how many women were relating to, identifying with it, because I have to be honest with you. And if this is something you can relate to, say yes in the chat. I felt very alone when I started to go through menopause. What happened to me was that my late 30s and like early 40s, I started to really get into health and fitness. I was a stay-at-home mom. I became a certified personal trainer. I started my own business. I was doing personal training in people's homes. We were called Fit and Fierce Mamas. And I was doing nutrition counseling for women. So like I knew all the things. I knew what to do. And I started to live this like healthy lifestyle, right? Maybe this is you right now. Maybe this was you in the past where I started, buying organic food and filtering my water and doing all of the things that were going to help me to live a long and healthy life. And I started to question this one thing that I was doing every single day, where I was putting a synthetic hormone called the birth control pill into my body every single day. Now, if anyone here is on the pill, I am not trying to shame. I am not trying to tell you not to do that. But for me, I was like, why am I doing this when I'm buying, organic meat and all these things? So I stopped taking the pill. That was around when I was 43, 44 years old. Within 2 weeks, complete chaos broke out. Menno hell began. My hair started falling out. I had the worst anxiety. And again, if this is anything you guys can relate to, give me a thumbs up. I couldn't sleep. I gained almost 30 pounds. I was completely apathetic. Like, I think the apathy was the other thing that really surprised me. And it's very common when we go through menopause. I just didn't feel like myself anymore. Everything was dried out, top to bottom. Everything was drying out. And every doctor that I went to at this point in my life, I'm on my 18th doctor. Every doctor I went to, no one, not one, talked about menopause until towards the end. Not one said to me, this is probably due to your declining hormones. Um, and it was really frustrating, and I felt very alone. And that made the depression and the anxiety even worse, right? So I finally decided one day I've had enough. This is not the kind of person I want to show up in my life like anymore. I have kids. I have a wonderful husband. I wanted to be a good example and a good part of our family. So I decided to really dive in and try to find answers. So like I said, I started seeing all these different doctors. I got myself back in the gym. Um, and I started to share that journey as well on Instagram, midlife fitness, midlife nutrition. And again, it was just resonating with so many women, which was really wonderful to feel like we had built this community where so many of us were going through the same thing. Now I got my nutrition back on point. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. I got my fitness back on point. I started HRT. I started doing things, I like to call them the spoke of the meno wheel. So if you think of menopause as this big circle and there's little slices of the pie or like little spokes of the wheel shooting out, you've got nutrition that you need to focus on. So these are the things, if you're in the thick of it right now, this is what I want you to think about. These are your foundations. Your nutrition. Are you prioritizing protein? Are you getting in your your nutritious vegetables and your fiber? Are you lifting weights? Are you progressing those workouts, making them more challenging over time? Are you prioritizing good sleep habits? I got to be honest, that's still one that's a little challenging for me. Are you trying to reduce stress? Maybe HRT is something you can look into, some supplements. And then peptides are another spoke of that wheel that I more recently discovered. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a second. So all of those things can help us to really feel optimized. But what I found is I was doing all of those things, not the peptides, minus the peptides, and I still felt like something was a little bit off. My sleep still wasn't great. I still didn't feel like I had optimal energy. I still didn't feel like I was recovering as well as I could be from my workouts. So my HRT doctor, who is a functional doctor, said to me, I think you might want to consider taking peptides. And I was like, peptides? Like, what do you mean peptides? And at that point, I mean, maybe there's some of you here that really don't know what a peptide is because I sure didn't. The only thing that I knew about peptides was like what I was seeing on TV, for ads for Ozempic and things like that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a hater. I was one of those people that was like, people need to be exercising more and eating better. Why are they doing this? So I was totally against them. But the more that I started to learn about peptides and the fact that there were more than just one and all the things that they could do for our bodies, I was like, okay, this is something that I need to be thinking about, not just for myself, but so I can share it with other women. So if you're like, what the heck is a peptide? I'm going to tell you. All right. A peptide is just a short chain of amino acids. It's a smaller chain than protein, but they're like the building blocks for protein. So you can think of them as like little messengers that tell our body to do special things like, hey, make more collagen, or like, hey, burn that fat, or yo, go repair that frozen shoulder or that achy knee that midlife lady's got going on. Okay. So they play really important roles in all these biological processes in our body and our hormone regulation. Okay. As we have peptides in our body, but as we age, guess what? Just like everything else, they start to decline. Just like our energy, just like our hormones, the peptide production starts to decline. Okay. So we can do all those things that I talked about that I
Yeah.
was doing, the fitness, the nutrition, the sleep, but we sometimes we just need that little extra boost. Like I refer to peptides as like the little cherry on top that can just give us that little extra boost to remind our body to do what it knows how to do and what it should be doing, but it's a little bit older. You know what I mean? It's like, you got a little bit of an older car, it kind of sputters along a little bit, and maybe it needs a little bit of extra love. It's the same kind of thing. So, here's let me just touch on really quickly the peptides that I'm taking that I have found that helped me. But before I do that, well, actually, let me start by saying one of the ones that I started with was microdosing a GLP-1. So that might be something that you guys are hearing a lot more about. It's a very hot topic, especially if you're on social media. And I took a couple notes here that I think are really important. And then I'm going to introduce our next guest so she can share her story. I listened to a podcast today that talked about what lowers your natural GLP-1 production. Chronic blood sugar spikes, chronic high cortisol and stress, aging, declining estrogen, because estrogen is protective and anti-inflammatory, poor gut health, low diversity of bacteria lowers our natural GLP-1 production, being overweight for a long time. Guess what? Every single thing that I have listed are things that happen to menopausal women because our estrogen is declining. We start to have less blood sugar control. We start to have increasing insulin resistance. We start to have higher cortisol, higher stress levels. We're dealing with a lot. We're the sandwich generation, right? We've got young kids, maybe kids going to college. We're dealing with aging parents. We're trying to figure out who the heck are we? Like, who am I now? My kids are older. I'm who am I if I'm not their mom? Am I relevant anymore? So all of these additional stresses on us, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to lose weight. When our GLP-1 production declines, we also have higher inflammation. You might start to see things. Has anybody started to see things changing in their blood work? And you're like, I'm not doing anything different, but my cholesterol is going up, my A1C is going up, my CRP, which is C-reactive protein, which is a marker of inflammation, is going up. All of these things are due to declining estrogen that we find in menopause, and they are all things that microdosing a GLP-1 can help with. So also, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, a lot of times that is related to dysregulated blood sugar as well. So that was one of the things that I started doing. I am not overweight. I am not microdosing a GLP-1 for weight loss. I am doing it for all of those metabolic benefits to my heart, to my brain, um, to help with quieting food noise. That's another thing. Of course, there's someone coming to my door right now, so I'm just going to ignore him because that always happens when you're hosting a Zoom call. Anyway, and I also started utilizing something called BPC 157 because a lot of us have issues with joints, right? So I started having major problems with shoulders. I'm lifting heavy in the gym. It has dramatically helped this shoulder. This shoulder has improved. We're not there 100%, but it's getting there. And the other thing that BPC 157 helps with is gut health, which again, as estrogen declines, our gut health takes a hit. It is very common in midlife. So there are other things you can do to help with your gut health, but microdosing or using BPC 157 is one that can really help. And then Oh, I also want to really quick mention if you are someone who is looking to build muscle, there is another peptide that is coming out later this week that is really fabulous for helping us to build muscle and reduce body fat. It's called ipamorelin tesamorelin. So you're going to be hearing more about that one, but you might want to put that one on your radar screen as well. So what I will tell you is that since I have started utilizing these peptides, and I also include NAD because, like I mentioned earlier, I have ADHD. I have ADD. It's undiagnosed, but I know I have it. That's also been helping with that brain fog, that mental clarity for me. So it's been wonderful. So those are the three that I have been
Don't
using
know
that I'm
where it's
finding
coming
have
from.
been helping a lot with optimizing my health and my longevity for midlife. So I feel like I talked way too long, and I want to introduce another fellow midlife woman so that she can share her story so that you can hear from somebody else that it's not just me. Shannon Sidwell is on here. Where is she? Shannon?
I'm right here.
There you
Hi.
are. We would
Hello.
love to hear everything that you can share about your journey.
Okay, well, a couple of things. I'm outside and it's quite loud, but I had a house full of kids, speaking of kids. So hopefully it's not too loud for everybody to hear me.
You're good.
Um, I had a little different journey than you, Jen, for sure. Like I wasn't on birth control, so I didn't have that, change so rapidly. But I think like COVID happened for me. I don't know about anybody else. And I think I was, quite well into perimenopause at that point, but who knew? Because I'm like, oh, COVID's making my hair fall out. Oh, this, I sort of just associated with all the stressors of COVID, the reason why I didn't feel like myself. Also, I'm a fitness instructor and I teach, during COVID, I was teaching like 20 classes a week, online. And like, God, I'm just not recovering. It must be that. My joints hurt. Everything hurts. I hurt my back. I hurt my shoulder, my knee, like nothing specific. Fast forward, yes, I was in fact in menopause because it happened or perimenopause, and I'm well on my way. Mostly for me, it's been, like joint troubles. And I teach so much that I'm like, I need to figure this out. So I had been researching peptides, and my husband actually took a peptide for weight loss, and it was sort of a midlife thing for him too. And a friend of ours just prescribed it for him. He wasn't significantly overweight, but he saw such changes in his mental health and his desire to drink alcohol and all of these things. And I'm like, wow, like, and he wasn't like a huge drinker, but it was like, he was probably drinking more than he should have. Again, COVID. I don't know if anybody else was there on that mission of drinking daily because COVID was like, anyhow, fast forward, I too was like you, Jen. I'm like, people that are taking GLP-1s are cheating the system. They're going to have long-term effects. It's going to be something bad. And then I saw my husband doing this and I thought, well, I'm going to look into the peptides because I think this is really amazing what they're doing. I am currently taking BPC 157 coupled with TB 500. And I've only been taking it for about 3 weeks, but the results for me are like stunning. Like I'm blown away at how much better I feel. My energy feels good. Also, kind of weird. I don't know if this is the gut health connection, but I definitely have like like a lot less cravings for bad food. I just feel better all around. I can't even tell you guys. And I'm still learning a lot about the peptides, but I'm blown away with my experience and the experience of people that I've sent in this direction. I have like 3 or 4 clients that are also taking the BPC, the Wolverine stack, as it's called. And I'm just a huge believer. I mean, I found this through Jen because I follow her on Instagram, Ellie, and I was scared. I'm like, oh, I don't know, what is if it's the dark web and oh, I'm gonna die from injecting myself. All the things that we think. And honestly, I'm like, why I did not do this but sooner, I don't know. So I want to help other women. And I see lots of women every single day in my studio, and I train clients. I've been a trainer for almost 25 years. And I am telling everyone because I am a convert. I think it's a miracle science. And I believe that, within 10 years, everyone will be taking peptides.
I love it. You know what? I always tell people again, for anyone on here who is familiar with HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and how
They're
HRT
doing
has
a
kind
meet
of
Zoom right now about the
how HRT
power of
has kind
peptide.
of become more
You want me
more
to put in
popular, if
earbuds,
you will. If you guys are
or
not
do
on
you
mute,
want
if
to
you could
listen?
please mute yourselves, that
Yeah,
would
sorry, Jen. I'm trying to figure out who it is, but I can't find it.
okay. That's okay. Um, Thank you. Yeah, if you're not on mute, please mute
Well,
yourself.
I
Might
can
be
hear.
Suzanne. There we go. 10, 15 years ago, HRT was like an absolutely taboo topic. Nobody would touch it. Not many doctors were prescribing it because of that study that came out, the WHI study that made everyone fearful of HRT. And the doctors who did continue to prescribe HRT were branded, voodoo doctors and woo-woo doctors, and were really frowned upon. And here we are years later, and now people are coming to realize, wow, actually, this can be a very beneficial thing for women's health. I think peptides are the same exact thing. I think they're getting some pushback right now because people don't really understand them and how they work. But I think it's just a matter of time that we are going to see the usage rise, especially for our demographic, for midlife women, because I feel like there are so many things that peptides specifically help with. Again, they're just little messengers. They're naturally made by our body. They're going in there and just reminding our body to do the things that it knows how to do. It just needs a little push and a little boost. So, okay, Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I get messages every day just like that from people that have used my link to order that say it's just been transformational for their health and how much better they feel, and they don't have knee pain, or they can sleep through the night again, or they don't have headaches, or they've dropped the inflammation, or they've been chronically dieting for 10 years, and they finally are able to lose a little bit of weight without feeling like they're restricting what they're eating. So thank
Yeah,
you
and
for
I
sharing
wanted to
that.
just really quickly add, Jen, that
Yeah.
because I was not really sure where to get this, I really like LEMD. They're like vetted, they're doing it right. They're using accredited pharmacies. And I think that so many people are curious and they don't know where to go. And that's why I like Ellie, because I wasn't going to just go anywhere.
I love that. Yep, so true. Okay. Thank you again, Shannon, for
Mm.
sharing that. Neva, are you on? I think I saw you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. All right. So we have Neva Hirschfeld, who's going to also share her story. Neva is the one that I was mentioning. She's a little bit younger. We're not going to hold that against her. I think you're what, 40, Neva?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
40.
40. Oh, 40 was the best.
Oh, really?
I loved 40. Yeah, 40 was great. But anyway, yeah, please go ahead and share your story and your journey and how you discovered peptides and how it's been helping you with your, wellness and health journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So 40 has been great. I will say 40 has been a lot better than 35. And I have to agree with Shannon. I was 35 in 2020 when COVID hit, a home alone, single mom with a 5-year-old boy. And leading up to that, I had a difficult breakup and so a lot of stress. And then all of a sudden, I turned 35, and it was during COVID. And I mean, I swear it was like overnight. I woke up one night in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. I put on, I don't know, 10 pounds seemingly overnight. I mean, I started having all of the symptoms of menopause, but way too early. And I have had hormonal problems, honestly, my whole life. I mean, they really started in my early 20s. So it was a difficult journey those 5 years. I went through all kinds of like, okay, I got to clean up my gut. I've got to dial in my nutrition, which I will say was sort of I was one foot in, one foot out with that. Probably also because COVID, I was on the drinking. I was one of those drinking heavily during that time too. Um, but I started to really I did get myself back on track and really started to like normalize my hormones. But I could not like there was inflammation. Okay, I can't say for sure if I was at fat or inflammation. I could not tell the difference. And I was really, really desperate. And I'm kind of an anti-pharma girl. So I was like, I'm not going that route. I'm not doing this. It's like, I would never, but I also am not a fan of suffering and trying to do all the things and not getting anywhere and just spinning my wheels. And so actually I started on a GLP-1 that I got in a sort of shady way, which is why one of the reasons I like LEMD, because I just kind of went, I didn't have a high enough BMI. And back then there was no microdosing. So I had to like fudge the system and like go into the back door and find some. And it was a bad thing because it was a pen. I couldn't adjust the dose properly. So I ended up taking too much. I ended up gaining weight and having serious side effects. I mean, real major gut issues. So went off that and went into even more of a depression. Like, wow, like I can't even cheat and get ahead, like I'm just nothing. I can't even cheat. That doesn't even work for me. Um, and not to call it cheating, but that was my mindset back then. And so eventually I actually ran into a friend one day and I didn't recognize her. And I'm like, she had lost 30 pounds since the last time I saw her. And I was like, what did you do? And she was like, I did tirzepatide. And, she was sort of an anti-pharma girl like me. So I was like, okay, well, if you're gonna look into that, maybe I'll look into it a little bit too. And so I did. And what surprised me was I do think most of it was inflammation, not fat. But like my brain felt less inflamed. I also got Lyme disease when I was younger. I mean, I had a whole lot of systemic inflammation issues going on inside of my body. And I could feel my brain swell sometimes. And I started on that tirzepatide and I was like, quiet. Like my brain was just like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I want to like run away from myself anymore. I don't feel like I want to jump out of this body. I don't feel like I have to. It was just such a relief of like the peace of mind that came from it was such a relief. Also, my hormones started to really balance. My periods started to become more regular. It was just incredible. And so I did that for a little while and then I got off of it because I want that in my back pocket when I turn 50 and when things start to, when I go through my own mental hell, I still want that in my back pocket. But I also was in a bad car accident a few years ago, and my neck injury is just constantly rearing its ugly head. So I recently tried BPC 157, and within 24 hours, my neck started feeling better. And that's really when and I've been following Jen for a little while on Instagram and just loving her and loving her content. And so I watched her with LEMD, and I'm like, wait a second. I I got the BPC 157 not from LEMD. I've since converted over, but when I saw that she had this opportunity here too, I was like, that's a pretty cool company. So I don't have to be getting these things like on the gray market where I have to constitute it myself. And there's a lot of room for error. And when you're really, this stuff is miraculous, but you really don't want to be irresponsible with it. You know, you really want to have somebody holding your hand and doing it the right way. So that's my story. That's where I'm at.
I love it. Thank you. I think a lot of us can relate to so many of the things that you said. And you talked about like everything being quiet. That's one thing. So anybody who's known me for a long time, I am a huge chocoholic. I am a huge dessert person. I don't know if anyone else is on here like that. And I feel like it got worse in menopause. Like I'm the kind of person, I go to a restaurant, I sit down, I look at the dessert menu first, and then I plan my meal around what I'm going to get for dessert. And that is one thing I have noticed dramatically decreased since I started microdosing the tirzepatide, the GLP-1 GIP, is like I don't even think about dessert anymore. And like my husband brought home my favorite chocolate cake from Wegmans the other day, and I was like, eh. I mean, it sat there. I had a couple bites. So that has been like eye-opening. I wasn't expecting that at all, but total game changer for me
If I
too.
can just
So
say, Jen, just for
yeah.
anybody who may have had a history like mine, a history of PCOS and eating disorder, that it was a game changer for the mental component of it, of like I just didn't have to think about things. I just felt like a normal person, you know, like somebody who wasn't thinking about what am I going to eat and being afraid to eat, and I'm afraid to nourish my body. And as I'm on this health journey, lifting weights and everything, you have to nourish your body.
Yeah.
So the fear of food went away, and that was a really big deal for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I love that the two of you also are very focused on getting your nutrition in, lifting your weights, getting your sleep, doing all of those foundations because it's so important. It is really important to remember, and I'm going to wrap this up, that, peptides are a tool. They are not a magic bullet. We need to be doing all of the things to optimize our health at any age, but especially in midlife, right? Because we need that little bit of extra push. So something like a peptide can give you that little bit of extra boost and that little bit of extra push, but it's going to work even better. It's going to be an even bigger whipped cream cherry on top if you are optimizing all those other things for your health as you go through this journey. So, okay. Um, Blair, do you think we have time to take some questions before I wrap up?
I didn't see any questions.
Okay. All right, cool. If anybody does have any questions that we didn't cover, feel free to go back to the person who invited you to this call. So let me just finish by saying, and Neva, you touched on it a little bit. I mean, one of the things that I love so much about LEMD, this longevity telehealth platform that we're talking about here tonight, is and one of the reasons why I'm so confident in sharing them with people is because it is a trusted source. This is a legitimate telehealth platform that uses 503A, 503B compounding pharmacies with legitimate oversight, with FDA approved ingredients that are tested. You don't have, there's a lot of very sketchy sites out there. So I'm not saying number one, anyone needs to be on peptides, but if it is something that you want to explore, you do want to make sure you are using a trusted source for it. And there's a lot of like black market research grade peptide sites out there. I would just caution you to be very careful about that. Even if you get them from a doctor, I can't tell you how many people I have seen that have said, I got it from a doctor and they didn't give me any guidance on how to use it, what my dosage should be. It was kind of like, here you go, have fun, good luck. And, they ended up having issues because they were using too much. They didn't have good follow-up. And I want you to know that is something that we take very seriously at LEMD. You're connected with a functional doctor. So let me just really quick explain if you did want to consider researching peptides a little bit more or potentially adding them to your midlife regimen, you are going to get back with the person who invited you to this call, and they're going to have a link to share with you to the LEMD site. On that site, you can go, there's so much good information on there. Even if you're like, well, I don't think I want to order, you can learn so much from the site. There's information, there's PubMed studies linked to all of the peptides on there. There's FAQs about all of the peptides that are on there. So what happens is you select which product you want, you create an account, you fill out a medical history form. Okay, it's an in-depth medical history form that's going to ask you a lot of different questions. You are then going to be like a functional doctor is then going to be assigned to review that medical history form. And if they see anything that could potentially be a contraindication, they're going to reach out to you. They're going to want to chat with you and understand that a little bit better. If you are approved by the doctor to use that peptide, it's going to be sent to that 503A, 503B pharmacy, and it's going to be delivered directly to your door. And I'm hearing from people that like they're getting some of their peptides. I can't promise this, but I'm hearing from people they're getting some of their peptides within like 2 days. Some of them are taking a little bit longer, but it comes pretty quick. It comes packed on ice. Your price includes your shipping, your peptides, your doctor review of your medical history form, unlimited chatting with your doctor through your patient portal. It includes your syringes and it includes your alcohol swabs. So there's no hidden fees either with LEMD, which I really, really like. So you can feel confident that it's coming from a reputable, trusted telehealth source. And the other thing is, if, you know, the three of us that shared here tonight, we also are affiliates with LEMD. So if that is something that is of interest to anybody, if you're someone who's interested also in sharing peptides, you can do that simply by sharing your affiliate link, and you can actually, earn commissions for sharing your link with people. And then there's also an affiliate plus side where if you want to then help other people start their own affiliate business, you can do that too. And there's a compensation structure attached to that too. So if that's something you want information on, also reach out to the person that invited you. But hopefully, like I said, you come away from this call tonight learning at least one thing that's going to help you in your midlife menopause journey. And if there is something we didn't cover, just reach out to that person that invited you tonight, and I'm sure that they would love to help you. So thank you for spending, I went over, thank you for spending 32 minutes with us this evening. Remember, you are a midlife baddie. Menopause is not optional, but us rocking that phase of our life, we have control over that. So, all right, guys, take care.